Hi, welcome back. Today, as promised, we're going to compile Ncurses from scratch. First things first, to avoid repeating some of the steps that we went through yesterday, I went ahead and created a profile script. This is similar to a .bash profile or a .bashrc file in other languages. This file gets executed every time that my shell loads up. And in this, I just put the path export that was in the savepath.sh file yesterday, as well as a call to a command shell. The C flag here tells it to just run whatever's in the string once and then exit. As you can see, I'm loading the vcvars32.bat script, which sets up the environment so that I can use Visual C++ as linker. Once it's done that, then it goes ahead and spawns a login shell. The problem with that is that the login shell is going to run this script. So to avoid an infinite loop, before I do any of that, with this if statement, I check to see if this GNU-Win32 folder is on the path already. If that folder is on the path already, then I just tell it to go ahead and skip right to the end and exit the script. So the end result is that the script gets run once, a child shell is created. In the child shell, this part of the path already exists, so the script gets exited out of. As you can see, my environment for Visual Studio is already set up, and my linker works right off the bat. Also, I am running that in that child shell, so if I exit out of it, I'm in the parent shell, and my linker won't work anymore. So just keep that in mind. In order to exit out of the shell, you'll have to type in exit twice. Now, I've gone ahead and created a build environment for myself. I have 4 folders here. Specs we're going to need later on when we're actually building Cross Linux from scratch. What I like to do is I like to write an entire book chapter into a shell script so that I can call that shell script again later on in case I make a mistake or I need to scrap the system and start over. Sources right now already has my Ncurses tarball. All the rest of my tarballs and patches are going to go in this folder. I may decide later on to make a separate folder for patches. Scripts contains that version check script I wrote yesterday. If you were paying careful attention yesterday, you saw something like this come up when I was running my version check.sh script. This chown utility is one of the utilities that version check checks for. Unfortunately, Windows doesn't really let you change the owner of a file. It has a script called takeown, and what that utility does is it lets you change the owner of a file to either you or the system. Now, chown is a pretty good wrapper for takeown. I'll go ahead and show you the guts of it real quick. And you can download this from my P2PU site. This is that usage information that popped up when I ran the script. And essentially, you would just type in a command like and what this usage script would do is it would take this part and strip it. It ignores the group completely. It would check this to see if this was either you or root, and it would take the appropriate action depending on whether or not it was you or root. It would change the owner to you, or it would change the owner to the system. So in order to get around that, I'm going to go ahead and map another Unix concept to a Windows concept for us real quick. You can use the run as utility. And as you can see there, I ran as myself. You can use run as to switch to any other user, and then you can use the chown script to change the owner to you, and that'll let you change the owner of any file to any identity that you can log in as. I'll go ahead and map the other two Unix concepts that we're going to be using to Windows concepts real quick, and then I'll go ahead and get started building. One of them is symbolic links. If you'll recall, yesterday I did something like this and mentioned how it wasn't a real symbolic link and how it actually made a directory and copied a bunch of files into it. Symbolic link is sort of like a shortcut file, except the operating system treats it as if it were really the file that you are making a shortcut to. I'll go ahead and show you the syntax to do that in Windows. This only works with recent versions of Windows. The utility is called makelink. The J here stands for directory junction. This technically creates something a little closer to a hard link or a mount point, but for all intents and purposes, you as the user can treat it like a symbolic link to a folder. If you take this J out, then you're just making a symbolic link to a regular file. Other than that, this is the name of the link as it's going to show up. This can be a path, or it can just be a link in the current working directory, and then you'll want the full path that you're linking to. So we've gone over changing ownership, switching user, and symbolic links. The last concept I wanted to map over for us before we can really use our MSys environment to build cross Linux from scratch is permissions. I don't know if I mentioned this in the other video, but there is a utility, and I'll go ahead and show you the syntax for using it, called CLFS for controlling access control lists. I always use this R flag when I'm granting permissions. What it does is it takes all the existing permissions just for the user that you're changing permissions for and wipes them all out. Gives you a clean slate, so that this command is going to give you all the permissions on that file. This is going to be the user's name. F stands for full control. If you're doing this inside of an MSys shell instead of a CMD shell, because you have these parentheses here, you're going to want to surround this with either single quotes or double quotes. And you're also going to want, before any of these switches, the file name right there. If you just want to see all the possible permissions that you can grant with ICA-CLS, it's just /?. And if you scroll up here, you can see all the possible values you can use instead of F. I don't actually like using the ICA-CLS tools because Windows and Unix file permissions are really dissimilar. With Windows, your file permissions are always relative to the context of a single user, and they don't necessarily match up with the user's owner. So you can't really, there isn't really a concept in Windows that exists of a file being executable. Every file is technically always readable, writable, and accessible to the system, and everything else is relative to the user, and there's no real way to test that programmatically easily. So whenever I need to change file permissions, I usually just do that through the GUI. I'll right click on a file, go to properties, and then go to security and just set everything up there. However, I wanted to show you that tool so that you know what it is and what it does. And that's enough about that. We can go ahead and get started building Ncurses. And this build directory is a temporary directory I created just for building packages. Gonna go ahead and untar that tarball. Z stands for a gzipped tarball. X stands for extract as opposed to compress. V stands for verbose. I want it to go ahead and show me everything that's in the archive as it's extracting it. And F is a prompt for me to tell it what file to extract. In this case, it's Ncurses. And they've actually given some building hints just to us MinGW users. I like to use a program called Less as my pager. And what Less does is it just buffers an entire text file to the console. I can use the J and K keys to scroll up and down. I can use the up and down arrows to scroll up and down. Page up and page down work. What I really like is I can type in a / here, or a / here. This one right here. And type in some words that I'd like to search for. In this case, config. And then I can hit the letter N to warp to the next one. If I want to go backwards, I hold down Shift and push N. And this right here is what I was looking for. I found that it actually compiles better if you compile without this with pthread. So I'm going to go ahead and pull out the next 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9, 10, 11, 12 lines after the word configure. And I'm going to do that with a tool called grep, which is a regular expression parser. Okay. And this right here is everything I wanted. So go ahead and highlight all of that and right click. I'll come down here and I'll right click again and hit enter. And this will start the configure script with all the options that I want to use to compile for MinGW. This script takes a little bit of time, so I'm going to go ahead and end this video right here. When we come back, I'm going to go ahead and run the make and install routines and take care of any last minute stuff we need before we can finally build cross Linux from scratch.